Hey everybody, welcome to our next episode of Two Dads, One Car. Right now it is 6:30 in the morning, so it's going to be a little earlier than usual, but it's okay because I'll be interviewing my next guest. His name's Tim Wong. Tim is someone that I'm actually on this weekly mastermind with every Sunday morning at 6:30, so this is the perfect time. The reason why we have it this early is because his kid wakes up pretty early too, and I just like to get a jump start in the day. And so we're going to be having him in the car talking about a variety of topics. Not quite sure what we're talking about yet, but he'd be the very perfect guest. So he's just around the corner. I'm going to pull up next to him and bring him on the show. So thanks for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the episode so far. I'm having a blast, and welcome to our next episode. So he's just here. Give me a second. I think he's trying to figure out how to get in the car. You push.
Oh, there we go.
I say we do like a tutorial before it goes in. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome to the car.
This is a nice car. I'm actually quite impressed how much space there is in this car.
There is actually. The reason why I got the car is I wanted to get it before my kid arrived, so I could play around with it for a little bit.
All right. Wow, you have planned for this to be a family car.
Yeah, we have our baby seat in the back already.
Yeah. Wow. It's well ahead.
Yes, for sure. Well, welcome to our episode of Two Dads, One Car. Thank you for being open to the idea and being driven around for like 20-30 minutes to random places around the city. But before we start, maybe we can give an introduction about yourself, kind of how many children you have, if you're expecting anyone else. Maybe let's go through that.
Sure. My name is Tim Wong. Became a dad December 30th, 2019. It was quite an exciting time. So I have one child right now, and we're expecting another child in about a month. So that's my entire parental experience so far. The length of my parental experience.
I mean, that's incredible, right? So the beauty of this like podcast video series is to introduce and interview, dads who've been dads for a while, those who are recent dads. Recently, I interviewed my cousin who's had two kids, and we're all 4 and 2. And you're just done 1 year-ish, more than 1 year so far.
A year and a half.
Year and a half so far.
Yeah.
My math is a little off. That's why I'm not in your area of practice. And you have one coming a month. Man, that's exciting.
Yeah. So we're going to have 2 children under the age of 2. Both of whom we're going to be wearing diapers. So it's going to be quite a hectic time, I think.
Wow. I guess like talking about hectic, the one thing I want to first touch upon, you and I are on this weekly mastermind, and we meet every Sunday morning, so it's appropriate that we're talking around 6:45 a.m. Today on a Saturday. It's like these early birds. Have you always been a morning person, or has this been something like new that you wanted to create because of fatherhood?
I've never really been a morning person, but I've always been able to wake up for anything, just for work or for Dragon Boat, or for if I needed to wake up, I'd wake up quite easily. I'm just excited to start the day usually. But I've always been a bit of a night owl, so I sleep late and I wake up early. So that's pretty much my life.
That's amazing. There's this topic I really want to jump into, speaking about waking up early as well. Learn about dad bod on social media and on TV. Is dad bod real? And I know you've been going through this amazing transformation recently, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about those 2 questions.
Sure. Dad bod tends to happen because it takes a lot of time and energy to raise a child. And dads end up spending a lot of time, new dads end up spending a lot of time raising this child and taking the focus off of themselves a little bit. And so what ends up happening is that a lot of your habits before you became a dad start to catch up to you. And those are your exercise habits, your eating habits. And so I think being a dad just compounds the effects of your habits a lot more. And dad bod is real because it takes a lot. It just takes a lot to try to maintain an exercise regimen, to maintain a health regimen, while you are sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night every night for months on end.
Mhm.
So that's what tends to happen sometimes. In my experience in 2019, when I became a dad, uh, I probably put on maybe 17 to 18 pounds
Wow.
over the course of a year and a half without realizing it. It just slowly crept up. It's just 16 pounds. Let's say I put on 16 pounds over a year and a half. That's really just a pound a month. But I increased a pound a month for 16 and 17 months and ended up putting on 17 pounds.
Wow.
And so after that, like also COVID was going on at the same time, so I wasn't going out as much. But it got to a point where I was like, well, I've really my clothes don't fit as well as I'd like for them to as well. It doesn't fit this image of myself that I have in my head. My fitness and my body and my appearance is not really in line with who I see myself to be. So over the past 4 months, I've been actively putting in more time and effort to eat better and to exercise better. And over the course of 4 months, I've lost about 21 pounds now.
Oh my gosh.
So my weight increased by 17 pounds and it's come down by 21 pounds. So it takes a conscious effort to eliminate that bod.
This needs to be in a book. I mean, your book could be No Dad Bod.
The opposite of dad bod is actually shred dad.
Oh.
That's the other hashtag.
Shred Dad. That's great, actually.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, Tim, you used to Dragon Ball competitively, like, nationally and internationally, right? And I guess that had to put a pause when he started this next phase of life. Do you think that attributed to it, or was it just a combination of things? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball was a big part of my life. I've competed for many years, and I've coached for many years after that too. I've been in the community for about 11 years now, and I guess being a coach, it's important to set a good example for my paddlers and try to stay in shape and try to have the right attitude about eating and sleeping and exercise. So without that, which was a big part of me, I almost lost a little bit of my identity through Dragon Boats, and so yeah, that definitely affected my health a little bit as well. But as you can't dwell on tough times forever, so I don't know. After a few months, I decided to get back into who I see myself to be. Yeah.
And building on like the word like identity, and I'm so glad you mentioned that word, because that's actually what I want to be talking about very next too. There is a sense that when men become dads, there is a big identity shift, and in some sense, sometimes the dad takes the back seat to both the mother and the children, and all this attention, and things kind of shift, right? Did you experience that identity shift, and did that affect you in any way?
That's a very good question. When I first became a dad, the early days, it was quite a. I didn't know what to expect. You could read as much as you want, and you could listen to other people as much as you want, but you don't really know who you become. I think when you have this child in front of you in your arms, and everything has changed. The whole relationship with my wife has changed. We have now one more person who is part of our family, and yeah, when it doesn't always go smoothly in terms of like birthing and latching and feeding and sleeping, nothing really goes to plan. And I realized that when Monica and I became parents, my wife's Monica, when we became parents, she spent a lot of time feeding and nursing and just recovering, because the process of birthing is really intense.
Yeah.
So So I tried to make sure that after the baby was born that she could sleep 8 hours a night, and not get too interrupted. So I took on night shift, and I didn't expect to take on night shift, but I've always been really good with like not sleeping too much or having interrupted sleep. Somehow I can still function pretty well, whereas she can't function so well if she doesn't sleep the full 8 or 9 hours. Um, so naturally, it just became where I ended up looking after the baby from 8 p.m. until uh, 7 in the morning every night.
What, 8 p.m. to 7 in the morning?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And a newborn feeds every 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it almost doesn't make sense to feed the baby. Um, let's say you feed the baby at 1 in the morning, and then he takes about half an hour to eat, and then he sleeps for like an hour and a half. So it doesn't make sense to like almost sleep for an hour and a half and then wake up and sleep for an hour and a half and wake up. For me, anyway.
That's right.
Some people do it. But it didn't make sense for me to do that, so I just stayed up the whole 8 p.m., 7 a.m., and I would sleep from 7 till about 1 or something like that. And then.
Are you still doing that now?
That lasted for about the first 7 months
Oh my gosh.
of Isaiah being here. So I did that for 7 months. Unfortunately, I've got a work that is quite flexible in time schedules, and so what I ended up doing is I ended up typing up my emails and doing all my work in the middle of the night, and just scheduling it to send at certain times in the day, so that it doesn't seem I'm sending emails at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning to random people. So, but I think a new dad does end up having to take on a lot of the work because mom is just healing. So all the cooking, all the cleaning, yeah, I picked up pretty much 90% of the cleaning and 60-70% of the cooking, and then the rest of the time we eat out or we order food in.
Tim, you're like a superhuman. One of the things that we talked about during our mastermind sessions is that how don't I think you remember saying this to me about how like don't use your kids as an excuse not to do things. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit because it sounds like it's a bit of a philosophy that you have, and clearly it's been working really well in terms of like your career and kind of your fitness as well too. So maybe you could touch upon that a little bit just for the listeners to understand.
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes being a dad, it gives you an excuse um, to almost do less because we spend so much time on. Because now we have this more important role of raising a child and progressing the human race for another generation. That sometimes dads or parents, I feel, are spend so much. They almost live vicariously through the kids, and they don't pursue their own goals anymore. And they say, because I am a new parent, I can't spend the time going to dragon boat or going to my or going to the gym, or I don't have time to work as hard, or I don't have time to do whatever hobbies that a person had before they had a kid. All of a sudden there's a shortage of time supposedly, but I don't believe that to be the case. I believe there's always time for what is important to you, which now being a new parent, what's actually most important is that you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize quite ruthlessly what is important and what is not important, and what you're going to spend your time and energy on, and what you're not going to. And so yeah, I think sometimes people feel like their personal pursuits get diminished or get or not as important to them. But it still is important to I feel, to try to achieve your best and pursue your own passions and goals, so that you can set a good example for this child who is looking up to you.
And I want to hone in on what you just said there. It's what I gleaned from your response is that don't necessarily use the children as an excuse not to pursue your personal interest. Doesn't mean pursue every single thing, but sounds like be intentional about it, because when you feel that you lack that autonomy, the ability to try your personal goals, especially as, I guess I don't want to be generalizing, but a lot of men are, we have these certain goals, these targets, and we don't feel like we can't do that. We kind of lose that sense of us.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can't pursue everything. You can't pursue all your interests, but you can decide which of your interests you want to pursue the most. Yeah, like personally, I've always wanted to play competitive golf. Not like super competitive, but I want to take part in tournaments and compete on uh, just maybe like the Vancouver Golf Tour or something local. I've always wanted to do that, and that's one of my goals in the next year or two.
Oh, no way! I had no idea. Well, speaking of that, we're gonna go for a coffee break.
Sure.
So what would you like? I'm gonna get a black coffee.
I'll get a black coffee.
All
That's
right, let's do
perfect.
it. So those who are watching, we're gonna get a coffee. Next screen or this screen? I haven't been to this.
Hello, good morning. How can I help you today?
Hi, can I get 2 medium black coffees,
Sure.
please?
2 medium black coffee, yeah.
That's it.
It's $2.90.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, coffee break. There's a I thought the Starbucks would be open, but I guess it was too early for the Starbucks drive-thru to be
Wasn't
open.
that? Oh, I see.
Yeah, there's one over there on Terminal.
Yeah.
Um,
This works. So you're excited to be a dad? What's your experience been like leading up to this?
yeah, by all means, throw me questions too. It has, I've had this like recently, and I'm gonna talk about it with you guys tomorrow. This new perspective actually shown up this last week. It's really like a perspective of gratitude, actually. My best friend's been trying for many, many years, and you might have friends who are going through like IVF, and
Absolutely.
I discovered my other cousin's been trying for like at least like a year, 2 years. My God, man, it's super stressful. It's gonna pay for the
Sure.
bill here.
Thank you.
So I'm just thinking about my best friend, right, and his wife. Like they've been trying this 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I can complain about a kid crying, but I know that she'd be more than happy to have a kid
Absolutely.
crying through the night, right?
Absolutely.
At that point. So I think gratefulness is starting to be one of them. Like being like, we are fortunate. It was super easy, I guess. Like second shot it in, right? But my God, if you had to try that long, I don't know what your process was like. But maybe your friends are in the same situation. But I don't know.
Right.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it might be a little hot.
Yeah.
So that's been my perspective, especially yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great perspective. It is not that easy, and I do have a lot of I do know of quite a few people who have had trouble, and I've had clients who were planning for families and are still planning for families, and it takes a long time. And it's not that easy to. You would think like babies are easy to make. They're actually not very easy to make at all.
Right? Because remember in high school or like in elementary school, like always have safe sex, right? Like you're like, okay, so that my God, right? And then when you actually want to try, like it seems like it's such like an ordeal, right?
Yeah, it's different. It's not as easy as school made it seem to be, I suppose.
Yeah.
But no, that's a great perspective to have it to have, and it's important, especially I think when sometimes you have a dark time being a parent when it's like 3 or 4 in the morning and you've had a crying baby for a long time, and it's easy to complain about how hard it is, or to complain about just lack of sleep. But I share the same perspective that I am grateful for having this child, and just having the ability to have this child is definitely something to be to have a lot of gratitude for.
Speaking of dark times, really the point of this podcast interview is just really uncover the unspoken truths of being a father. Like, were there any unspoken truths that wasn't really shared, but it's really hush hush, or you had to like scope on the web? Like, did any of that happen? Is there any?
I think one of the challenges, because you actually when you have a child, there are actually two big challenges. One is the baby, the baby, that doesn't sleep, that needs to be carried for hours on end. Um, but the second challenge is actually also you also need to look after your wife.
Yeah.
So you're not just looking after your baby, who is this thing that needs a ton of attention, but also your wife's going through a very challenging time with their body, with their hormones, with their sleep, with nursing. Sometimes babies don't always latch very easily, or maybe feeling like at times insecure or inadequacy about being a new mom, and whether they're good enough, or why things are not natural. And they go through a lot, I think, hormonally.
Yeah.
Monica is not bad at it, but I think there are times, when you're tired and you're hormonal, and things are not working well, and it's so yeah. So I think that was probably a surprise, I suppose, that you have to look after the baby, you have to look after your wife, and then at the end of all that, you got to find some time to look after yourself. So
Did you just clone yourself?
Um,
How'd you do it, Tim?
Fortunately, I'm pretty low maintenance, so I don't need that much looking after, I suppose. I'm pretty steady and pretty emotionally, I feel I have things under control, so I'm not a very emotional person, and I just put my head down and just get to work, really. So that helps a lot, I think. Yeah, it helps for the dad. The dad needs to be stable emotionally and mentally and physically and financially too. It's a big part of it. It's really hard to be a new dad unless you have that financial stability, because you really are a pillar for everyone else to lean on for, I don't know how long it goes on for, but quite a while, I think.
Speaking of, and thank you for sharing that regarding the unspoken truths and the hormonal side of it. And I think it really depends, right? But I think that does come about, and I think I was talking to a friend about it, and she was sharing a story about when her kid first came out. She's like, "Ooh, I don't like this thing," right? And she's like going through a lot of stress when it came to latching and things like that. I'm like, "Whoa, I didn't know that kind of stuff happens." I thought it's all in the movies, right? Baby comes out,
Right.
kid grows up. No, so next thing you have this beautiful home. You have 2 kids. You have a pool. Like they go to university, right? Like there's more to that. I'm guessing.
there is a lot more, because I think before we had a child, it was 2 adults, both financially semi-independent, but you have 2 incomes, and there's just 2 people. It's pretty simple. But now it's for Monica was on mat leave for 18 months, around then, I think. So yeah, she was on mat leave for 18 months, and so she's collecting EI, which is $2,000 a month, and then it just becomes my income. So it's my income and $2,000 a month, and now we're raising three people, and this is to feed 3 people. That was a surprise, I think, even though I'm a financial planner and I should have known that. When it actually happened, I was like, whoa, that's quite a difference in cash flow, I think. Plus your expenses are higher, with baby toys and baby crib and baby food and diapers and everything. So your expenses are significantly higher, your income is lower. So it does put a squeeze on cash flow.
I'm hoping that this podcast takes off and we'll have sponsored items from different companies, and they'll cover those expenses. I'll give you a cut of it. The next topic I want to dive into is really on career. What I did when I was surveying the market right now is that when it comes to podcasts and materials, a lot of them are catered for women and for mothers, which is absolutely fine, right? There's a lot involved, but there's not so much when it comes to fathers. And one thing that, at least for a lot of career-driven fathers and myself, is when you do have a new child in your family, I guess you're having 2 coming up, right? There is that sense of how do you quote unquote balance between family and career. what has been really your approach? Because it sounds like you've been doing incredibly well, and I really want the listeners to get a sense of your perspective about that topic.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because my job as a financial planner, I don't see it as something that's separate from who I am. It is just part of my life, and everything just blends in together. Um, and and I'm very committed to my work, but it's just an extension of me, and it's just it's I don't see it as separate from who I am, and so I've always been very committed to my work, and fortunately, I guess at this time I've had a lot of momentum that work that I've done in previous years helped carry my career forward. While there were times I needed to look after the kid and spend less time at work, um, a lot of the work was done years ago. Unfortunately, it carries over to now. Um, but that's a tough one trying to balance. Everybody's work is different. Not everybody's work is so flexible in terms of time, in terms of being able to sleep from 7 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. It's not an option available for everybody. I I've always been in the same company. I've been in the company for like 9 years. I don't really know what goes on outside of this company. It's like a different world. So I can't, I feel I just give everything I have to work and to the family, and that's I don't really have a good strategy for that. Yeah.
9 years, but also I mean I know in like recent year, like your business is really taking off, and I guess maybe it's about finding that rhythm, right?
Yeah, many years ago, somebody had told me that there's um, there is a tipping point in my line of work where it gets to a point where you've put in all the hours and all the work and all the prep and everything, and everything just starts to flow a lot better after that and just flow naturally. And that probably happened for me a few years ago, and I didn't realize it when it did happen. But times like now I realize, oh, when I look back at it, I was like, oh, it tipped for me like at this point in time in like 2016, 2017 was when I felt like things were actually flowing better, and things were going a lot better for me at the time. But I didn't realize it until I look back, because when you're in the moment, it was actually quite tumultuous and quite long hours and late and tired and everything that goes along with that. Um, but that was when things I think started going well for me.
Good to know. Good to know, Tim.
Yeah.
I guess really on the just building on the discussion on career and dad bod and these myths or these unspoken truths on fatherhood. I guess really my last series of questions is that, what is something you really wish you knew right before starting this? Like if you had a chance to draft a letter to yourself or an email or like a voice message to like the day before Isaiah came out of the womb, like what would you say to yourself if you had a chance to kind of speak to yourself in those words?
I feel it's something I tell myself pretty much all the time, and I would have said it more so at the time, but everything always works out, and everything's going to be okay. Um, and there's nothing really to worry about. I think you'll figure it out. I think you'll figure everything out. Um,
Yeah.
I think we'll figure it out. So life is a whole process of figuring things out. But yeah, it's just figuring out, not getting too frustrated when things happen, and nothing ever goes perfectly, and nothing ever goes your way, and it's just about like, adapting and adapting to moments, and adapting to times when times are not good. Sometimes it takes a few minutes to adapt. Sometimes it takes months to adapt or a year to adapt, but ultimately you do have to adapt because the world doesn't revolve around you. You do have to adapt to the world. So
I love it. You know, I got it. You need book title. It'll be No Dad Bod, and then the second book would be Zen Dad or Buddha Dad. Tim, you have such a fantastic head on your shoulders. I'm excited for this upcoming addition to your family in a month's time. That's around when we're expecting as well too.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. When you add two, maybe we'll do a second podcast. You know, that'll be the next season. But I appreciate you being on the show and being part of this journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, when you have yours and I have mine, we'll definitely do some daddy dates. So
We'll have the babies crying in the background. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Cheers, and I appreciate you being on the show, as I've just mentioned. And yeah, thanks for
Cool.
being on
Thanks
this.
for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Good.
That was a lot of fun.
There you go.
Cheers.
Well, welcome for those who are listening in. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube. We'll have a bunch of more episodes. This will be season 1. It'll be a limited edition, so just 10 episodes, and we'll see what happens. But maybe season 2 will be, the next stages. But thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.